That's our like tradition in the office. We have to every single day.
I do at least 5 or 6 of those a day, especially since I've been campaigning. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I bet it is. But little cups like that or the whole coladas?
No, little cups. And that's not including, I'll have a American coffee here and there as well.
Oh yeah. But on American coffee, you kind of like just sip on it. And this is just like straight to the face.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, yesterday I think we had like 3 cups of colada. Yesterday was tough.
Amazing. I live off them. They're like my fuel.
Yeah, me too. Same. I'm actually not even from here. I'm from Poland, and we don't have Cuban coffee over there. So when I came here, I discovered it. Life changing.
I have a friend of mine that visits from California, and all he does is like he gets here, he's like, I want Cuban coffee. I want just take me to Cuban coffee. The Cuban coffee in California is not the same. I want to have it here.
Yeah, and then you leave, and you miss that. You have
a headache if you don't drink it.
Yeah.
You're grumpy. You're like, where's my Cuban coffee?
Nothing tastes like that. I love Cuban coffee. Didn't know I needed it in my life until I came here.
Absolutely the best.
Yeah. All right, guys. So welcome to Better Globally. Today we have a very special guest, Alex Bucelo.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So Alex is running for a commissioner of City of Coral Gables, correct?
Yes.
So the election...
Group 5. Elections are April 11th.
April 11th. Okay, perfect. So how did you get to this point? Let me walk me through how was your process? How did you start? What did you do during your teenage years? What got you into like politics?
Great question. So around 7 years ago, I had the privilege of serving on the code enforcement board. So in my early 20s, I was appointed to the code enforcement board, got very active in the community. I've always wanted to serve this community. The Gables is something that I feel like Gables has shaped my life. I was born and raised in Coral Gables. So I reached out to the elected officials then. They appointed me to the code enforcement board. And since then, what was just serving on one board has transitioned to me serving on 4 boards currently. I was serving on the planning and zoning board. Recently, I had to step away from it because I'm running for office. The mayor advisory board for Mayor Vince Lago. The Coral Gables Museum, which I'm very active in. We've really revamped the museum in the last 12 months. Last night alone, we had a Young Associates event. We had over 60 people there. We're really activating the museum, which is important.
I gotta go for sure.
Yeah, you do. It's a great event. It's, I believe, the first Thursday of every month. Nicholas Cabrera is the one really spearheading that. He's doing a great job. And I'm also on the board of the Youth Center, the War Memorial Board, where I serve with Commissioner Kirk Menendez. So it was always how do I give back to the city that's made me the city beautiful. And again, like I said, born and raised here, and what I want to see is Coral Gables remain the Coral Gables I grew up in. I want it to remain the same for my kids and generations to come.
Or even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Even better. That's the goal.
So what do you think shaped your interest in politics?
What shaped my interest in politics is giving back, how to make the city better, being involved. I've always been an involved resident, always asking questions, how to make the city better. And what started off, like I said, 7 years ago as just wanting to get involved has brought me to this point. The only way to affect change is to get involved and serve. So it started as just being an involved resident, has evolved to me wanting to serve at City Commission and really affect change.
Would you say you had like a role model or someone that really instilled this mindset in you?
Yes, my grandfather was always one to give back. I look back at my grandfather, definitely a role model of mine. He always gave back to the community. He was always active, always volunteering, always wanting to make a difference. My father, the same. My father was also a role model of mine. He served in Miami-Dade College. He really spearheaded a lot of different initiatives there. Mm-hmm. He gave back to the community. So I was always around volunteering and giving back and more importantly, changing things for the better. How do we, bring new initiatives and making sure that things continue to grow? So yeah, I think, from a family standpoint, I have seen it. I've grown up in it. And then I've seen, different commissioners here in Coral Gables really make change in different mayors. So like I said, I serve under Mayor Lago on the advisory board, seeing what he's done for the city. It's incredible. Seeing what the current commission has done. I think it's astronomical what they've done in the short 2 years this group of commissioners. So it's been something that I've always wanted to do and continue to do.
Yeah, I mean, Vince Lago for sure is definitely doing a great job.
Yes.
He just got reelected with no competition. Probably
no
everyone
opposition.
else was just scared, like, no point of running.
Yeah. It's a testament to what he's done for the community. Definitely is. It's what he's done in the last, as mayor and 8 years as commissioner is definitely, it's noted. And it shows now with running with no opposition.
Yeah, 100%. So why did you even decide to run for the office of the commissioner? Why is it commissioner? Why, for example, why you're not running for a mayor? I mean, maybe after Vince Lago steps down, but
I will run for mayor, not against Vince. Why commissioner? Like some people know this. I ran 2 years ago against Kirk Menendez. We ran against each other. He obviously won. He is now someone that is probably my biggest supporter, and more importantly, probably one of my best friends. We talk every day. Kirk, we ran against each other. He was the man for the job at the time, and he's done, like I said, an incredible job. We see eye to eye in a lot of things, and so it's again just my story hasn't changed. It was at that point 2 years ago when I ran. It was to affect change, to continue to make this city to be the best city in Florida, if not arguably the United States. It's what you see here is incredible. The quality of life, the character of the city. How do we maintain that? And that's why I'm running. And 2 years ago I ran. Kirk Menendez won, and I'm here again running again.
So Kirk Menendez.
Yes.
So how did this relationship grew over the time? Because you said you were running against each other 2 years ago.
Yes.
So was it more like a, competition? And after he got into the office, it changed more into like a friendly?
4 years ago, him and I served. He's the chairman of the Youth Center War Memorial Board, but I served with him on the Youth Center board for 4 years ago at this point, 4 years ago. So we were friends before. We became really good friends during, and we became even best friends after. So it was never a competition. And why it wasn't a competition? Because, like I said, we had the same interest in mind. We wanted, it wasn't about us. It was about the city and how we improve on the city. How do we make the city better? So it was never me against you or, different points. It was, we always had the same mentality, which is how do we make Coral Gables an even better city to live in?
I mean, even if with the competition, even if they're doing something good for the city, even though it's a competition, it's worth partnering up with them just to help them make the change.
It's a healthy competition. And like I said, he's done an incredible job the last 2 years.
Okay. I'm not exactly very familiar with how the political system works and all the positions. So what would you say is the job of the commissioner?
Great question. Our job is, and I always say this, what is your job? Is to make our city better. Make sure that your quality of life, what you see as Coral Gables remains the same. I think as a commissioner, my job is to make sure, like in my time in the planning and zoning board, which was make sure overdevelopment is tapered down. We have a zoning code in place. Make sure we abide by it. Mm-hmm. If we are going to deviate from it, which in my time, and again, I can only speak from what I've done in the planning and zoning board, is if we're going to deviate from the zoning code, make sure we have two things. I always say this: resident input and resident benefit. There was one particular project that came before me in the planning and zoning board where we allowed the developer 7 feet in height, more than what he was allowed for, 7 feet. But we cut the density in half and we got a park. Not one resident opposition. So my goal is, as a commissioner, and what my job is, and I call it a job, it's engage the residents, listen to the residents, and again, and I'm going to keep on saying this throughout the whole podcast, I guess, is continue to make the city a better place to live, safer place to live. Work with the cops, work with the fire department. I think we have some of the best in the state. And I've said it in a couple of forums now, if not in the country. Our response times are something to brag about. Just continue to work with Chief Hudak and make sure that, again, the quality of life in Coral Gables is preserved.
I've heard Vince is trying to get the whole Coral Gables Police Department Teslas.
Yes.
That would be dope.
Yes. Vince and the current commission have done a great job of bringing electric. I think we have the largest electric fleet in the state of Florida for a city. I know Vince currently, along with the commission, has talked about a Tesla for the police department. like I said earlier, I serve in the Mayor Advisory Board, and one of the presentations before us, I think it was last month or the month before, which was our environmental resiliency plan. And we've seen over the course of the last 10 years, our water usage, our power usage, our fuel consumption has reduced drastically as a city over the course of the last 10 years, drastically. So the one question asked is, that's fantastic. How do we improve on that? And one of the things is making sure, if possible, having the police department go electric, obviously with the safety in mind and so on. But that is something we are exploring. I know they're bringing one now, I think as a test, and see how we explore those options.
I love how you were saying that it's always very important to get the residents' input, because honestly, when I think about it, like, those are the people that actually live here. Those are the people that are here every day, go to work, raise their families. What would you say is the best way to talk with residents and get valuable input? Because, you know, some people may just be complaining, but it's not actually like super reasonable, or there isn't that much thought behind it. So how do you get valuable feedback from the residents? Over
the course of the last 5 months campaigning, I've had the pleasure of knocking on 2,500 doors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have many miles. I've just yesterday alone, I think it was a 3-mile walk just around the neighborhood, just knocking on doors. So I've spoken to 2,500 people that live in the city. I've heard their issues, the beauty behind Coral Gables is people are happy. Mm-hmm. Their issues pertain more to a small local issue, maybe a traffic sign, a pothole. So I know the issues. There are obviously bigger issues than that, but for the most part, the primary, a good portion of Coral Gables, people are happy. As an elected official, I think the only way to engage the residents is be transparent. I'm gonna tip my hat off again to the commission now. They do a great job of being transparent. Mayor Lago as well. Open door policies. Mm-hmm. Giving out my cell phone when possible. I walk now door to door and I give my cell phone. They go, I want to be involved. Well, if I have an issue, what I call, take down my cell phone. And as a commissioner, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Open door policies Wednesdays and Fridays, where I'll just sit at City Hall, and whoever wants to, there's no appointment needed. Come see me, and we can talk about the issues that are affecting you or affecting the city, and how do we address them. So be very transparent when elected, and be easily accessible. That's it.
Yeah, I really noticed that. I noticed it on Vince's Instagram, and I think it's a great idea. Just open door policy and just office hours where people can just come in. I honestly haven't really thought about it like that. I just haven't seen leaders in the city do a policy like that. You can just come and talk.
Our commission now, and what our commission's done now is incredible. I think any resident can come at any time, obviously just looking at their calendar, and every commissioner holds open office hours. Yet no appointment needed. No, you don't need to be a special interest person to get a hold of them. You just show up to City Hall, knock on their door, and you're able to speak to them and have them address the issues that concern you. And that's something I think is crucial. I think it's something we should build upon. Maybe more office hours, maybe Wednesday and Friday, 2 days a week. And again, be open and accessible for the residents.
What's the biggest lesson that you learned by walking around all those miles, knocking on doors, talking with people?
Biggest lesson I learned. I would say the biggest lesson currently that I learned is the 3 main issues affecting them, which is depending on where area of the city you walk, you see that there's different issues affecting different people. Closer to North Gables, you see traffic being an issue. And by traffic, I mean cut through traffic, not so much congestion, speeders, people speeding. People use Waze. So they're taking them off course, off these main roads, Bird Road, Lejeune, so on, and having them cut through these streets, and they're going 50, 60 miles an hour, according to the residents. Now, the issue there is that becomes a life safety issue. People with their dogs, 100%. People walking, the kids run out of the car, and whatever the case may be. So how do we address that? I think there's a myriad of things we can do as a city. Traffic calming, which I know is already in place. The city has a 5-year plan. If elected, I want to see how we bring that 5-year plan to a 2-year plan. Find the funding to expedite it. Again, these are life safety issues. Another big key thing we could do, and I've spoken to the chief about it, is enforcement. Find out what areas are being targeted the most, because usually these people are the same people that are speeding day in and day out. It's the same person going to work. So Monday through Friday, you'll catch that individual doing that at every single time. So enforcement, set a standard. Let them know that if you speed in Coral Gables, you're going to get ticketed. So things like that we can do to make sure that, again, our streets are safer, the people aren't speeding, and more importantly, our city's safe. Which, again, I tip my hat off to Chief Hudak. He's done an incredible job.
What would you say differs? Not necessarily the best politician and a leader in the city, and a very good one.
I think accessibility, being accessible to the residents, letting them have their phone, letting them have your phone number, letting them be able to go to your door, letting them be able to interact with you. I think, again, being their voice, being their their voice on the commission is the most important thing. Being, quite frankly, allowing them to speak with you and getting their message across and listening to them. Like you said earlier, we represent them, right? They're the ones that elected us, so we got to listen to them. And that's what I think makes an effective city commissioner.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Coral Gables. When I first got here, the Coral Gables is just so beautiful. I love the city, and probably most of it because of architecture, all the green areas and all this stuff. And it just looks like really like a separate city. Like you come in here and you're like in a different world. Are you still in Miami? I don't know. I mean, technically no, but okay. So you were born and raised here.
Yes.
How old are you now?
I am turning 30.
Okay, so 30 years here. What's your favorite places that you go to in Coral Gables?
So again, was born and raised here. Favorite place to go in Coral Gables, I don't think it's changed. I've been going to the youth center since I was 4 or 5 years old. I love going to the youth center. I would walk my dog in the youth center around the park. I throw the ball as a little kid with my brother in the youth center. And to this day, I'm able to say I'm a board member of the youth center or more board. So the youth center has been a huge part of my life since growing up. Absolutely.
And for, let's say, tourists or people that are not as familiar with Coral Gables, what would you say are the top spots that they should definitely visit in Coral Gables?
I think our business district is growing. You've seen it over the course of the last 2 years after COVID. The downtown Coral Gables has really come alive. The Miracle Mile is as busy as it's ever been. John Martin's just got revamped. John Martin's is become a place to be. It's brought a lot of the people in the community together. I go there. I went there for lunch on Sunday with my wife, and you see your neighbor. You see people I've seen that I grew up with. I went to St. Teresa with. They're there with their families. They're there having lunch, and it's a great spot, a great local spot. You see what they've done here at the Agave Project. That there are a couple new restaurants coming online here. It's the downtown Coral Gables has, I would say, primarily over the course of the last 2 years, really, really just come alive. So there's a lot of places to see in downtown Coral Gables, a lot of restaurants. You have the museum. Like I said, the museum is over the last 12 months has really, I would say, it's really changed. We have a lot of new events. Every week there's something. We have the executive director, Elvis Fuentes, has done a superb job at the museum.
Okay, I'm really excited for what's going to happen here in the plaza, because I've heard there's so many restaurants and just in general what kind of a scale this place is aiming for.
Yes.
So I'm very excited. So when we talk about plaza, I see a lot of buildings just building here in Coral Gables. How does the whole process look like?
So when it comes to building, that's one, to circle back or echo my previous thoughts. It's one of the biggest issues is overdevelopment. You talk to the residents of the city, and that's one that, quite frankly, doesn't matter which part of the city they live in, that's still a concern to them is overdevelopment. As I mentioned earlier, in the Planning and Zoning Board, I was very strong against overdevelopment. Mm-hmm. There was a project in particular not too far from here on Ponson University, very controversial project. Why? Because the developer wanted 177 feet when he was only allowed 90 to build.
That's a little too much.
Yeah, it's almost double. That's exactly it, almost double. During my Planning and Zoning Board meeting, I think we had over 50, 60 residents show up in opposition to the project. And my time there, I was able to engage with those residents. I was able to understand their concerns. I was able to honestly address their concerns because, quite frankly, I agreed with them. That's excessive. That's the key definition of overdevelopment. And I was able to side with my residents or side with the residents, better said, and vote against the project, because I'm not in favor of overdevelopment. Like I said, if we're going to have any sort of deviation from what I think is a fantastic zoning code, we need resident input and resident benefit, and neither one of them was there for that project. So I voted against it.
What are some disadvantages of building like a too tall building?
I think when you look at these tall buildings when you look at a tall building in general, especially in Coral Gables' beauty is its historical charm, its quality of life, its character. And I think when you see these tall buildings, you kind of lose that. Like you mentioned, you walk into Coral Gables, it doesn't even feel like you're in Miami, right? Because it has Mediterranean, a lot of green, not so much concrete. And these tall buildings take away from that. They take away from the quality of life. They take away from, more importantly, the character of Coral Gables. So that's something that I see as an issue. And that's why, again, I have voted against it and I will continue to vote against it.
Okay. Most of our audience is usually younger people, young adults. What would you say is your biggest tips for people that would like to start getting involved or get into politics and do more or less what you do? How I did, I went to a local commissioner at the time in my early 20s, and I asked them I want to get involved. I went to 2 or 3 of them that were serving at that time, who I'm blessed to have their endorsement now. And I asked them for nothing else other than help me get involved in the city, help me make change, put me somewhere where I can affect change and make the city better. And at that time, they put me on the code enforcement board. They appointed me to the code enforcement board. I served 2-3 years there. And then from there, like I said earlier, I went on to different boards. So it's go to your local officials, ask them to get involved. Tell them, listen, put me wherever. I want to serve our city. I want to help the city. I want to make a difference. And I'm sure they'll be more than willing and able to help you. So that's what I did, and that's my advice. Okay. Did you go to college anywhere here?
Yes. So I'll start from the beginning. I went to St. Teresa.
Okay.
So St. Teresa and the Little Flower. I went to Columbus. And then I went to FIU for undergrad and St. Thomas for law school. St. Thomas up in North Miami.
Okay, so you're a fellow Panther. I also go to FIU.
Yes.
What did you study?
I studied finance. I majored in finance with a minor in marketing.
Oh, dude, I'm almost similar. I'm doing international business, but here I work for marketing. So it's like,
marketing classes and finance classes almost went parallel to each other. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm taking like finance classes now. I think it's very good that you're able to get the good handle on all the aspects. Even though you're a finance major, you still need to take marketing classes. Yeah. Even though you're marketing, you still need to take finance classes. And marketing helps you in anything. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a banker, an architect. Marketing is in everything. You need marketing in any professional, I guess, avenue you decide to take. Even as a politician. As a politician, anything. I don't know one field out there that doesn't need marketing. So it's to me, it's crucial. And that's why I tried taking as many classes as I could while taking my finance major. Mm-hmm. So what's the best way to market yourself as a politician? As a politician marketing is the right word. Well, how I look at it is getting out there, talking to the residents. And the perfect example of that is what I told you, close to 2,000 doors knocking over the course of the last 5-6 months, is just getting out there, letting them see you, and more importantly, hearing the residents, hearing the concerns, their issues, and how to address them. So it's really getting out there, knocking on the door, going to a resident event, whether it's at a pocket park, at the museum, at the youth center, is just really getting out there and listening. More important is listening. As a politician, I think marketing yourself is listening. So that's what I've been doing over the course of the last 5-6 months. What personality traits do you think make politicians successful? Personality traits that make, I'm gonna use the one I just used and one more: listening and advocating. Mm-hmm. Listening and advocating. I think listening is, you're not a politician if you don't listen. Like you said earlier, we represent the residents, our neighbors, and you got to listen to them in order to represent them. As a lawyer, I'm a lawyer in my professional life. I got to listen to my clients. I got to see what their issues are, mm-hmm. and how to address them, how to fight for them in court, how to advocate for them in court. So
those traits that I learned as being a lawyer, I can transition them into being a politician. Why? Because I'll listen to the residents and advocate for them on the city commission. So I think listening and advocating are the two key traits that I've developed both in my professional life and now in my political life, I guess, if you want to call it. And that will help me become a more effective commissioner.
I love how you said it's listening mostly and advocating. I feel like some politicians, especially like the big scale, just talk.
Yeah.
There's not much listening and actually doing.
And that's why
what people want.
And that's why you see people get frustrated. You see them on the news. You see them in advocating against the politician that they just elected. Because why? Because they get elected and they don't listen.
Yeah.
You know, they promise X, Y, and Z and they do the complete opposite. Luckily for us, I think we live in a city where you don't see that. The current commission and our mayor, they've been elected. They listen. They're happy. Like you just said, the mayor went unopposed. People weren't happy. That wouldn't be the case. So you have the current commission who has done an exceptional job. Open office hours. Like you said, they're there if you need them. They're a phone call away. And luckily, I think we live in a city now where they're listening. They're there to answer the questions. But you do see it on a bigger scale. Other cities, federal, state, they don't listen. They do not listen, and it gets frustrating.
I mean, I think for a reason we, as a society, we're super divided. Like we've never been that bipolar. And any elections there are, maybe not for city of Coral Gables for the mayor, but for presidential run, there's always like 51% to 49%. And it's a lot like this in a lot of other countries too. In my country, when there were elections, was the same thing. So what do you think makes people divided?
People divided are different views, but more importantly, I think what we see lately is at the end of the day, we need to unite. We all have the same goal, right? Our goal is to make sure that our city is on the right path. Doesn't matter what party you belong to, at least in local politics, we all have the same interest, right? Making our city better, making our cops better, making our fire department better, making our city more beautiful. Partisanship, luckily for us, has no place in local politics in Coral Gables. And at the end of the day, we need to unite as a community. We're all neighbors. We all have the same interest. And as neighbors, we need to come together and make sure the city is in a better position.
Okay, how do you make people come together? How do you unite people? What do you think are the ways to do it?
Again, bring them together, hosting events for open office hours, really engaging the residents in different events, whether it be at museum events, youth center events. I'm just using those two places because, again, they're familiar to me. There's a million other places we can do this at, but it's really getting the residents to come together and really sharing the same cause, which is making sure our city is moving forward in the right direction.
Okay, so why Coral Gables? I mean, you said that it's like you've been born and raised here, but if you just had to pitch someone straight away, like imagine I'm a citizen of Coral Gables, tell me, why do you want to run for a commissioner and why should I vote for you?
Why should you vote for me? Like I said earlier, born and raised in Coral Gables. I went to St. Teresa Youth Center. Me and my wife obviously have a home in Coral Gables. My parents have lived the last 50 years in Coral Gables. My in-laws live in Coral Gables. My brother lives in Coral Gables. My family's Coral Gables. I know Coral Gables, but more importantly, when it comes to me, is I've served the city for the last 7 years in different boards. I know the issues. I know how to address them. I've been knocking on doors for the last 7 months, 6 months, and I think what has shaped me to become a commissioner is serving, again, over the last 6 years on different boards, knowing how to address the different issues from permitting to overdevelopment, which I voted against, like we discussed. So I know the issues. I've been at the forefront, and quite frankly, I've been hearing our residents. So I think in order to continue to affect change like I've done in the past, it's led me to run for commissioner.
What inspires you to do what you do? What motivates you to keep going every day and keep trying to make the city better, make residents happy? What are the main factors?
Waking up and, like you said, when you drive into Coral Gables or drive through Coral Gables, you're like, wow, this is a special place. It's from the trees to the architecture to the safety. You always talk to the neighbors that they feel safe. What drives me is I want to make sure that my kids, their kids, and the generations to come have the same feeling, the same quality of life, the same thing that we just discussed, that that aha moment, like, wow, this is Coral Gables. I feel it. I feel like I'm not even in South Florida. I want to make sure that continues, not just now, but for a very long time. And I think the things we do today in office aren't going to go into effect in 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. It's going to go into effect generations to come. So I think what we do now affects for many, many years to come.
I agree with so many things that you're saying, because I have the same feeling. I was so excited to work here just because I knew I can drive through Coral Gables, and I just like love the trees, just going through those little alleys. It just looks like so charming.
Correct.
This charm of the city is undeniable.
And that's why
like
we need to protect from overdevelopment. We need to protect our city. We need to make sure that like I'm going to say it again, that character and charm that we've come to love, that you've come to love, that everyone has come to love is protected, and not just protected now, but for generations to come.
Once you get elected to the office, what are like 2 or 3 biggest issues that you would like to make the biggest change on?
One of the biggest changes I want to see made is permitting. We as a city went digital on the permitting process 4 or 5 months ago. Before that, it was a paper system, which we're in 2023. We should not just be now going to a digital system. However, that is what I like. What I'm saying is that we're on the right path, right? We went from a paper system to a digital system. We also got a new development services building that just was, I think it was 7-8 million into renovating the development service building, and the permitting department is now in the new building. They're set up. But what is concerning me more about the permitting process is, how do we make it user friendly? How do we make the permit process to a point where you don't need to be a contractor, a developer, or something to know how to use the permitting system? A homeowner who wants to get a driveway permit, a paint permit, should be able to do it and have it streamlined, right? We've come to use our iPhones to order food, everything is at our fingertips. Why can't the permitting process be on par with technology? So my goal, one of my main initiatives, if elected, is using technology and a myriad of things, but let's talk about the permitting process. Using the technology to bring the permitting process up to speed. So it's what we're used to nowadays. So that's one of my main initiatives as a commissioner. Continue to see that permitting process that's already in place rapidly get up to par with technology.
Listen, Alex, I wish I could vote. I'm not a citizen, but if I was able to vote, you'll for sure get my vote.
I appreciate it.
So I have one last question.
Go.
So this podcast is called Better Globally. We explore art of becoming better and becoming better as a whole globally. So what would you say, how to live more happy, more meaningful, and more purposeful life, and how to become better as a whole?
Get involved, whether it's in a local school, local politics, charity. Get involved, give back. The only way to affect change is by giving back, by getting involved. And quite frankly, not only you doing something for the greater good, but you will appreciate it. And as you see things change for the better, and people, oh wow, we did this, we did that, and the residents come up to me, oh, you voted against overdevelopment. Thank you. You listened to us. Listen to people. Listen and advocate. And I think by doing those things, by giving back, by listening, and by really just again uniting, a lot can happen, and we've seen it.
All right, Alex, thank you so much. That was
a pleasure.
It.
Thank you.
So a lot of value for people. So one last thing, April 11th, if you have to be a citizen of Coral Gables to vote?
Yes, you have to be a resident of Coral Gables. Early voting is April 1st, 2nd, and the 8th. The election day is April 11th. Absentees already dropped. So yeah, just get out and vote. Talk to a neighbor. Let them know. Again, get out and vote. The voting is important. And just get out there.
So you heard, if you're a citizen of Coral Gables, this is your guy. Vote for him. He's going to make a change. Thank you so much to Heyday Marketing and A Day in Miami for sponsoring and powering this episode. And wherever you're listening or watching, like, subscribe, follow the podcast, leave a 5-star review. And thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time.
Thank you.